Hello everyone, welcome back to Anime Octopus, your go-to destination for immersive anime fanfictions and compelling alternate storylines. Today, we continue with part 2 of our thought-provoking series, What If Naruko Was Cursed to Destroy the Hidden Leaf Village? Prepare for an intense narrative filled with unexpected twists, emotional conflict, and a fresh perspective on the Naruto universe that challenges the boundaries of fate and loyalty. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is intended purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage featured. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, let's begin. The silhouette of a short girl wandered calmly through the dim corridors of a shadowy underground tunnel. She paused at a junction where the path split into three, one leading left, one right, and one straight ahead. Unlike the left and center paths, the right corridor glowed with a curious crimson hue. Intrigued, the young girl turned and followed the radiant path, her footsteps echoing softly through the narrow hall. Eventually, she came to an abrupt stop in front of a massive, towering gate. Behind the bars rested none other than the mighty Kyuubi no Yoko, guardian of immense chakra and spirit. A powerful aura radiated from the other side of the gate, filled with raw emotion and restrained energy. Two glowing, crimson eyes opened within the darkness as the girl approached. The Kyuubi studied her with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "How is it that you're here before me?" the great beast asked from the shadows that eternally veiled its form. "Well, this is my mind," Naruko replied with a warm smile, her golden hair glinting faintly under the surreal light as she stopped in the center of the chamber. The Kyuubi, unmoved by her calm demeanor, gave her a wary glance. "Still, that doesn't explain it. You've never entered this space before. Only I can summon you here, so how are you standing before me?" "Simple. I'm dreaming," Naruko answered, still wearing that confident grin. "What? I don't sense the quiet of night. It feels like daytime outside these walls," the Kyuubi murmured, peering into the shallow water below. The surface began to ripple, revealing an image of Naruko sleeping peacefully on her twin-sized bed. Still skeptical, the Kyuubi rotated the image to check for any flaws. He expected a mistake. After all, Naruko was known for her carefree nature. His gaze drifted around her small apartment. Beside her bed stood a nightstand with a lamp and a framed photo of her and Team 7, taken just after they passed the challenging bell test led by their mentor, Hatake Kakashi. Naruko wore her familiar orange and blue outfit, frowning slightly in the picture while being teased by the Uchiha. Sakura stood nearby, dressed in her usual pink attire, and Kakashi wore the standard Jounin uniform. Everything looked exactly as it should. Scanning further, the Kyuubi noted the usual clutter strewn across the floor. Even the moonlight pouring through the window, accompanied by the correct star formations, matched his extensive knowledge. There was no possible way Naruko could have faked it with such precision. The Kyuubi sighed behind the towering bars, then looked back at the smiling girl. "Fine. I believe you. But why have you come here? I have no interest in conversation." "Why not?" Naruko asked, her tone gentle but curious. "Because I carry deep resentment toward you," the Kyuubi answered honestly. "And in case you don't know, resentment means strong dislike or anger." Unfazed by the statement, Naruko's warm expression remained. "I don't believe you truly dislike me." "Then you're more naive than I thought," the Kyuubi said, trying to brush her off. Naruko simply shrugged, her smile unwavering. "I think you dislike the situation you're in, not me. And you're directing all your frustration toward me because I'm the only one here." "Humph. Believe whatever helps you sleep at night. I still don't like you," the Kyuubi muttered, unwilling to concede. "That's okay," Naruko replied with a cheerful tone. "You don't have to like me to talk to me, right?" The Kyuubi gave a reluctant sigh, clearly giving in to her persistence. "Very well. What do you want to know?" "I'd like to know what life was like for you before you were sealed inside me," Naruko asked, eyes glowing with genuine curiosity. "Why would you care about that?" the Kyuubi questioned, puzzled by her interest. "Why do I care about anything I ask?" she responded playfully. Grumbling, the Kyuubi gave in. "Fine. Long ago, I came into existence as a result of a unique blend of natural chakra. That was roughly 8,988 years before the birth of the first ninja, known as the Sage of Six Paths. So yes, that would make me over 9,200 years old." "Wow. That's incredible," the 12-year-old girl exclaimed. "Yes, I was the first of the tailed beasts. For 1,000 years, I wandered the world alone. I searched not only for challenges but also, perhaps, companionship, though I would never admit it. On my 1,000th birthday, another being emerged, the eight-tailed beast. It looked like a blend between a bull and an octopus, but unlike me, it was peaceful and didn't compete for the same resources. We met once. It believed it could challenge me, but quickly learned otherwise. Naruko tilted her head, intrigued. But if you two fought, how did it recover? We tailed beasts are made entirely of chakra, the Kyuubi explained. We cannot truly fade away. We simply need time to restore ourselves. As centuries passed, more tailed beasts came into existence, each with one less tail than the last. There were many attempts by some to prove themselves stronger than me. But none succeeded. My strength was unmatched. Naruko nodded slowly, admiration in her eyes. But then her expression softened. You've had a long journey. But I'm guessing not many friends along the way? In the shadows, the Kyuubi's crimson eyes widened briefly. He quickly composed himself and frowned. I am the Kyuubi no Yoko. I don't require such things. Naruko smiled softly. Maybe not. But that doesn't mean you don't deserve one. Still, I feel sorry for all the solitude you must have endured, Naruko said gently, turning away from the vast, dimmed lair of the nine-tailed fox. She had listened carefully, absorbing the history and emotions tied to the ancient entity. Next time we talk, maybe I'll tell you a bit about myself. The great fox spirit narrowed its eyes, responding with a dismissive scoff. Please. As if I care to know anything about your uneventful, insignificant life. The creature paused before continuing with a grumble. And I don't need sympathy from a girl like you. Naruko paused at those words, then turned with a calm smile. That's okay. But may I say one thing before I go? The fox gave a sigh, its massive eyes regarding her with weary indifference. Fine. When I look at you, Naruko began, her tone quiet but sincere, I see a space filled with darkness, like a hall where candles once waited to shine, but no one ever entered to light them. But every time we talk, it feels like I'm lighting one. One day, that room will glow, and maybe, you and I will no longer be alone in it. With that, she turned and walked back down the corridor she had come from, leaving the nine-tailed fox in contemplative silence. The ancient spirit blinked slowly, caught off guard by the girl's words. Since when had she become so thoughtful? The Kyuubi's eyes narrowed in wonder as Naruko disappeared from sight. A soft, unfamiliar smile crept onto its face. Back in the real world, Naruko was enduring a major challenge. She had nearly no chakra or stamina remaining, and her entire body felt strained, especially her left shoulder, where a strange mark, shaped like 3 swirling commas, pulsed faintly. Just moments ago, she had carried 5 chonin up 5 flights of stairs, depleting what little strength she had. To make matters more difficult, she was now the first to participate in the preliminary round of the chonin exams, and her opponent was someone who had attempted the exam 7 times before. Why must I always get the hardest part? She wondered, eyes struggling to stay open. She knew that if she fought now, her chances were slim. She could barely stand, let alone defend herself. Her opponent, Kabuto, advanced. His hands glowed with light blue chakra as he reached toward her, but something happened, his strike never landed. Naruko had collapsed forward, her body falling into Kabuto's leg. She had simply lost the ability to remain standing. Kabuto stopped, withdrawing his hand, as Naruko remained motionless. Her breathing was slow and shallow. The crowd fell into hushed concern. In the viewing area, Team 7 watched with growing alarm. Naruko, whispered Sakura, her eyes wide with worry. Please be okay. I can't lose you again. From the side, Ino offered a thoughtless remark, well, it's not surprising, really. It's Naruko. Losing before it even begins. Sakura turned, fury building, but it was Sasuke who spoke up first, his voice rising with rare emotion. What do you know, Ino? You act like you understand, but you don't know anything about her. His outburst stunned the surrounding Junon. She's faced challenges most of us couldn't even imagine. Don't judge her. Even Kakashi raised an eyebrow at Sasuke's reaction, hidden behind a thoughtful expression. He really has grown. Kakashi then spoke, to be fair. Naruko's condition is serious. Look at her, those marks, those injuries. She looks like she's pushed herself well beyond her limits. Only now did many in the audience notice just how battered Naruko appeared. Her jacket was torn, revealing a black undershirt, also worn and frayed. Her arms and legs bore small scars, remnants of past battles. She looked pale and exhausted. Kabuto leaned down, gently lifting Naruko's collar to check her condition. Her eyes were only half open, unfocused. Though still breathing, she was clearly in no condition to continue. Kabuto looked to the proctor, Hayate. Well. Seeing as Uzumaki Naruko cannot continue, the winner is. No, shouted Sasuke, gripping the rail in front of him. What are you doing, Naruko? You made it this far. You fought bravely against Haku, someone even I couldn't defeat. You stood your ground against Orochimaru, while I froze. Everyone listening was astonished. Sasuke rarely admitted such things, especially not in public. I'll admit it. You're stronger than me, he said firmly. And I won't accept you giving up now. As if answering his cry, a strange energy suddenly surged from Naruko's body. Red markings from the curse seal on her shoulder began to spread across her left side. Her head hung low, but her eyes snapped open, now a brilliant crimson. Before Kabuto could react, Naruko moved. Her fingers gently but precisely pressed into points along his forearm, causing his arm to falter and go limp. Then, with a burst of speed, she spun and lightly pushed Kabuto backward, sending him stumbling across the arena, where he landed with a thud against the wall. The arena went quiet. Naruko stood straight as the red marks extended over her, and an aura of energy pulsed around her. Her jacket flared open, caught in the rush of wind generated by her chakra. Her fingernails elongated slightly, and her features sharpened. Even her whisker-like birthmarks became more defined. A deep, ethereal laugh echoed from her lips as the chakra around her roared once more, creating a gust that swept debris around her. I'm free, she whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else. Her voice had deepened, not in pitch, but in presence, resonating with clarity and power. The older shinobi in the crowd exchanged glances. Could the Nine Tails be involved? No, the seal held. This was still Naruko. But transformed by the burden she carried. Kabuto stared, shocked not just by her transformation, but by her precision. She targeted critical points in my arm with exactness. Only a trained medical ninja or elite specialist could do that. Naruko stepped forward, her gaze intense. Her headband lay on the ground, unnoticed beneath her foot. Kabuto blinked, unsure what to do. You really thought that would be enough? She said calmly, raising her hands in a swift set of signs. Then, in a whisper, she spoke, wind release, divine mountain gale. A surge of controlled wind blasted from her position, forcing Kabuto to dodge clumsily, hampered by his injured arm. Tiles lifted from the floor as the technique swept through. When the dust cleared, Naruko stood still, arms crossed. Kabuto, recognizing the reality, raised his hand. I surrender, he said with quiet respect. This isn't the Naruko everyone thought they knew. Hayate nodded, raising his hand. Winner, Uzumaki Naruko. There was silence in the arena, not out of fear, but awe. No one quite knew what to say. Kabuto slowly approached Naruko, raising his hand in an offer of peace. But from the viewing stands, the Sandaime's eyes widened, sensing something strange. Something's wrong. Naruko Uzumaki wore a serious expression as she watched the boy's hand extend toward her. Glancing up, she easily saw through the forced smile worn by the man in glasses. Naruko returned a calm smile of her own, which eased her old classmates, though the jounin around them weren't fooled by her expression. Without warning, Naruko pushed the hand away and struck Kabuto firmly in the abdomen, sending him backward. The impact left him stunned, astonished by her overwhelming strength, comparable even to the legendary Lady Tsunade. Naruko dashed forward again, her right fist drawn back for another powerful strike. We're not done yet, she exclaimed, only to be halted mid-charge by 4 jounin who quickly moved to restrain her. Guy held her in a firm headlock, Kurenai knelt in front of her, trying to calm her down with gentle words. Asuma grasped her left arm to prevent any further action, and her mentor Kakashi had caught her raised fist, stopping it just inches away from Kabuto. Kakashi was surprised at the power in Naruko's punch. But even more concerning was the look in her eyes, a storm of intense energy, difficult to understand and impossible to ignore. What are you doing, Naruko? Kakashi demanded, struggling to believe that the girl before him was the same cheerful student he had once trained. Why are you acting like this? Because I can. Naruko replied quietly, locking eyes with him as her expression twisted into an unsettling grin. And do you really think you can stop me? Kakashi felt pressure building as Naruko slowly pushed forward against the restraints. Despite the combined effort of 4 elite ninja, she was advancing, step by step. Naruko! Came the strong, commanding voice of the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, halting her in place. That's enough. Stand down. Naruko turned toward the elderly Hokage with a smirk and replied with a tone of challenge, and why should I listen to you? The crowd gasped. This didn't sound like the Naruko they had come to know. Sakura stood at the edge of the arena, watching in disbelief. This wasn't the girl she had trained beside. For a long time, Sakura had seen Naruko as a distraction, someone who got in her way when it came to Sasuke. But everything had started to shift since their mission in the Land of Waves. She remembered Naruko's courage during the written portion of the Chunin exams, how she had refused to give up even when everyone else was about to. When Naruko went missing during the encounter with Orochimaru, Sakura had felt completely lost. She couldn't explain why it hurt so much. Even Sasuke's words of encouragement hadn't helped. She realized then that Naruko meant more to her than she had admitted, even to herself. And now, seeing this transformation, this new, colder version of her teammate, brought tears to her eyes. "Please stop, Naruko. This isn't who you are," Sakura called out, jumping onto the railing to face her directly. Naruko's eyes flicked to her, red meeting green. For a moment, it looked as though Naruko might say something harsh, but instead, she suddenly staggered back, clutching her head. The powerful aura around her began to recede as if something inside her was fighting back. "No. This isn't what we agreed on," she muttered to herself, clearly in distress. Her chakra faded, and her red eyes softened into familiar blue. With her energy drained, Naruko collapsed to her knees, unconscious. The spectators watched in silence. Some were in awe, others confused by what they had seen. Even Sasuke was taken aback by the powerful emotions Naruko had shown, both the pain and the strength. "Hurry and call the medical nin," Asuma ordered quickly. Kakashi approached his student, now lying still on the tiled floor. Naruko's expression had softened, no longer clouded by anger. Kakashi stared at her with concern and thought quietly, "She's changed. But at what cost?" Naruko awoke with a start, her entire body covered in sweat. The room was cool, yet she felt overheated. She blinked and slowly looked to her left. There sat Sakura, asleep with her arms folded on the bed beside her. "She's been here for 2 days, a calm voice said from the shadows. Turning to the right, Naruko saw Kakashi leaning casually against the wall. "She hasn't eaten much, just asked for your room number and stayed here ever since her match." Naruko looked at Sakura in silence, gratitude swelling in her chest. Then she remembered something. The Chunin exams. What happened? Did Sakura win her match? And Sasuke? "Relax," Kakashi replied with a chuckle. "Sasuke won. As for Sakura, she probably could have beaten Ino, but she was too worried about you. She made it a draw." Naruko smiled gently and brushed a stray hair from Sakura's face. "She can be really amazing sometimes." "In 1 month, Kakashi continued, the final round will begin. The doctors were surprised you woke up at all. You used an extraordinary amount of chakra. But then again, with what's inside you." Naruko nodded quietly. As Kakashi made his way to the door, he paused. "Naruko, is there anything you want to tell me? Anything at all?" Naruko blinked in surprise. She had to be careful. Raising a curious eyebrow, she responded calmly, "What do you mean, sensei? I think you know everything important." Kakashi's eye narrowed slightly before he sighed. "Yeah. Maybe you're right." He stepped out quietly, careful not to wake Sakura. Outside the room, Guy, Kurenai, and Asuma waited for news. "He seems fine," Guy said with a bright smile. "That same youthful energy." Asuma nodded. "Guess my old man was mistaken. His voice isn't any different either." Kakashi didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked up thoughtfully. "No. She has changed." The other Jounin looked puzzled. Kakashi added, "Did you notice she didn't use the honorific Chan with Sakura? She always did before." The others looked at him, suddenly quiet. Flashback. Following the preliminaries, the Jounin were called for a confidential meeting with the Hokage. Hiruzen led them to a hidden chamber within his office, revealing a series of old tapes that hadn't been viewed in years. "This," he said, holding up one dusty tape, "contains a critical incident from years ago involving Naruko." The room was silent as he placed the tape into the player. The footage showed rooftops and shadows moving quickly, Anbu in pursuit of a young child. The Hokage explained in a somber tone, "When Naruko was very young, she was unfairly targeted. This footage was never meant to be seen. But I needed to identify the ones responsible and hold them accountable. One Anbu, Captain Kohaku, forgot to turn off his camera. The evidence we captured was horrifying." The tape continued but was stopped just before any distressing visuals could be shown. "What matters," the Hokage said gravely, "is that despite everything, Naruko survived. She endured and grew stronger. But we must ensure no one tries to hurt her ever again. The room remained heavy with emotion as the Jounin processed what they had learned. Back in her hospital room, Naruko remained still, her breathing steady, as the early morning light filtered in. Sakura stirred, opening her eyes to see the girl beside her now awake. "Naruko," she whispered softly, a relieved smile forming on her face. "Hey," Naruko said gently, her voice full of warmth. "Thanks for staying with me." Sakura smiled wider and reached for Naruko's hand. "Of course." And for a moment, all the chaos and confusion faded, leaving only friendship, hope, and a quiet beginning to something new. A small trail of moisture touched the edge of Naruko's lips. She turned to Cheeto with calm defiance, a mixture of determination and inner strength in her gaze. Even after everything, Naruko managed a soft smile and said, "You're not going to break me." Before she could continue, another unexpected force struck her, causing her to fall to her knees, her body feeling numb and heavy. Around her, the room was filled with tension. Kurenai and Anko gasped at the unexpected turn of events. Even the seasoned Jounin, including Ibiki, shifted uncomfortably at the intensity of the situation. The Hokage himself, despite having reviewed the situation more than once, closed his eyes briefly at the memory. It wasn't something one could get used to. Naruko's eyes became dazed, her vision unfocused as she tried to make sense of what was happening. Cheeto released the grip on his blade and slowly stepped back, staring at the young Kunoichi with a smug expression behind his lion-themed mask. He believed he had won, that the village would praise him for what he had done. The other Anbu operatives followed Cheeto to the reinforced steel wall, though one of them, wearing a rat mask, turned back toward Naruko, perhaps to say something unnecessary. Cheeto didn't seem concerned, continuing his walk forward. The rat-masked Anbu took a step toward Naruko's still figure, looking down at her. "Pathetic." The word barely left his mouth when, in a blur, he was sent hurtling off to the side, crashing into a reinforced barrier. The metal was dented from the force, and the Anbu was left dazed and stunned, unable to move. The surveillance camera focused back on Naruko. Her head was lowered, so her expression couldn't be seen, but the 3 blades were still visible in her body. Quietly, she reached up and gripped the 2 swords lodged in her shoulders. With a swift and fluid motion, she pulled them free. Her movements were calm and precise. Cheeto's eyes darted to his remaining team members. On his left, one Anbu fell, collapsing as if controlled by strings cut midair. On his right, a mirrored image played out. Both of his subordinates were taken out in mere seconds, and Cheeto turned his attention back to Naruko. She reached for the final blade embedded in her collarbone and, with effort, removed it. Her movements were controlled and unwavering. Then, she stood, sword now in hand. Cheeto, realizing the seriousness of her stance, moved slightly to the side, dodging her first swing and reclaiming the weapon. Even then, his focus remained on her, alert. Naruko met his eyes, her own glowing with determination and something deeper, resolve born from hardship. She raised her hand in preparation for a technique, and before anything further could be seen, the camera recording the scene was destroyed by an unseen force. Back in the Hokage's office, the elderly third Hokage carefully removed the videotape from the recorder. He looked over to the gathered Jounin and began explaining what they had witnessed. "When I arrived at the scene, Naruko was lying near Cheeto. She was barely conscious, her breathing faint. We brought her immediately to the hospital, where the medics began working on her right away," Hiruzen began, his tone steady. "For 5 hours they worked to stabilize her. And just when we feared we might lose her, she showed signs of recovery." Kakashi's eye widened as he listened, still processing what he had seen. "This is incredible. I never imagined one of my own students would go through something like that and survive." The Hokage nodded, continuing, "When I visited her the next morning, the medical team had removed the equipment used during her treatment. Her visible wounds had healed almost entirely, save for some faint markings. At first, we believed it was the work of our medics, but upon closer inspection, we realized the healing was beyond normal capabilities." A nurse noticed something odd, Hiruzen added. Naruko's blanket was rising and falling gently. "When we checked, she was breathing. Somehow, she had survived beyond expectations. We soon understood that the Kyuubi had played a role, likely out of self-preservation. But regardless of the reason, I was simply thankful." "It's wonderful," Kurenai said softly, relieved. "But there's more," Hiruzen said, drawing the room's attention. The Naruko who woke up was not the same as before. Before the incident, Naruko was quiet, shy, rarely speaking unless encouraged. But afterward, she was different, more confident, more expressive, even cheerful. Ibiki leaned forward, curious. What are you suggesting, Hokage-sama? I believe, Hiruzen said slowly, that she created an outer persona, a layer of confidence, to shield her true self from the world's judgment. Not due to trauma, but as a conscious decision. A way to protect herself emotionally. Is that even possible? Guy asked, puzzled. Hiruzen nodded. For someone like Naruko. Yes. She's always had a unique spirit. Flashback end. Could that really be the case? Kakashi thought. Had Naruko built a new identity to cope with her life? Was her original self awakening? And would that be such a bad thing? No matter the answer, Kakashi was determined to be there for her. As her mentor, he would find the truth and protect Naruko with everything he had. Meanwhile, Naruko rested peacefully in her hospital bed, gazing at the ceiling. Sakura had already left after visiting hours, and the room was quiet. Closing her eyes, Naruko drifted off to sleep, knowing that soon she would need to confront something important. In her dream, Naruko found herself in a long, narrow corridor with 3 paths ahead. To the right glowed a soft red light, the center and left paths were shrouded in darkness. Choosing to face the unknown, she stepped into the shadowy hallway. At the end stood a figure, a silhouette, barely visible above the waist. You broke the deal. The figure's voice echoed sharply. Naruko remained calm. It wasn't the right moment. I'll keep my promise, but until then, you need to trust me. The figure murmured something, frustrated. Very well. Good. We'll talk again soon, Naruko replied, her voice fading as she began to vanish from the dream. The figure stepped forward, revealing features eerily similar to Naruko herself, whisker-like marks on the cheeks, flowing blonde hair, and a faint mark on the neck. A small, confident smirk appeared. Soon enough. When the time is right, I'll be the one in control. Dear YouTube family. That concludes this transmission. If you found value in this content, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated on future drops. Thank you for tuning in. With appreciation. Anime Octopus. Evolving content. Infinite possibilities.